great for you guys to be here. Down the hall to the left into the stairwell and down you go. If you would, if you could kind of put your cell phones on there, he's going to make some introductions of our invited guests, and I'll take the mic back, and his guests and our guest speakers, and we'll get started.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming tonight. Pleasure to be here. Before I introduce some of the elected officials in the room, I'd like to thank Phil for putting this all together, Supervisor Bloomfield and Neil Halloran for doing a lot of legwork for tonight. It really is going to be an exciting evening. And I'm going to say a little more, but first I do want to recognize some of the elected officials in the room. I haven't seen everyone on this list here, but I'm going to say it that way in case they snuck in. I'm not missing anyone. For Representative Congresswoman Nan Hayworth, Scott DeFrancisco, Scott here, and Stephanie Sweeten. All right, well, I know they were definitely supportive of tonight, so I'd like to acknowledge them. From Senator Kirsten Gillibrand's office, Susan Spear. Susan, okay. She was also very supportive. From Assemblywoman Annie Rabbitt's office, Jim Booth is here. I saw Jim. Thank you, Jim. County Legislator Tom Pahookie. Tom's here. Thank you, Tom. From the Town Board, we have Lou Capella. We have Phil Canarino, Ken Newbold, and Phil, Lou, Ken, and okay. And from the George was not able to attend. He had other obligations. And Mal Stewart from the Village Board, he also had other obligations, so my apologies on his behalf. We have Marcia Matthews from the Village Board, Ed Char, and Peter Smith here tonight. And before I turn it back over to Doug, I just want to say I'm very excited about tonight. Obviously, it's challenging times all over, and in the Goshen community, we're not the exception. In the village alone, as many of you may know, we have 52% of our property is tax exempt. The only solution that is going to come forward that's going to get us out of what we're in is economic development. And I believe that tonight is a first step. That's what it is, but it's a strong first step. And I believe that tonight will serve as a beacon that's going to shine in Orange County, in the state, and even in the country, that Goshen, New York, village, town, we are open for business, we are ready for business, and we are happy to have you. So thank you, everyone, for being here. And on that note, I'm going to turn it back over to Supervisor Bloomfield.
Thanks, Kyle. I too have some invited guests I'd like to acknowledge. Franco and Paula Ferdanza. They're entrepreneurs. I don't know who's the most entrepreneurial, but Franco is involved in the Planet Wings franchises, and his wife is involved in C'est La Vie in Middletown. Salon. And the last thing out the door, my wife said, is tell folks it's luxurious. She and my nephew went up there one time for a desperate haircut. He's 17 years old, and he looked like he needed a haircut. Gary Tetz, he's the younger of the two Tetz youngsters, and we just had a side joke because I have an older brother who always introduces me as his older brother. And it hoses me off. Anyway, Gary is also an entrepreneur, and I classify the entrepreneurs as people who are business people, they're risk takers, they're investors, and they're different than the rest of us. And that's why I think they're successful. Keith Soonholz, is he here this evening? Let me get my glasses on. One of the parts of being the younger brothers I can't see as well. Bob Sebestma, North Jersey Trailer and Truck Service. He is an entrepreneur. He has brought a business into Goshen within the last 12 months. A nice business with several employees. Deshaun Shalana, he has brought a business into Goshen in the last 12 months. He owns the Goshen Sports Center out on 17M. The building that was laying waste until he purchased it, and within a week he was full bore. In fact, now they're talking about expansion. Mary Zrailski, there she is. Mary has been on our planning board for a long time. She retired from that, and here she is again. We're going to try to put her to work maybe one more time working with Phil. Okay. And Mike Torelli. Hey, Mike, thank you for coming. He works with the Stewart Airport Port Authority. Okay. I'd like to also welcome people here tonight and put my own spin on why I think it's important now. Phil Dropkin came by my office. I'd asked him to come by to see me because I had a job for him, not this job. And he said, "No, Doug, I don't think I want the job you've got, but I've got one that I'd like to do." So I can count on one hand all the people who've ever wanted to do something for me. In fact, I can count on one finger all the people who want to do something for me. And it is Phil Dropkin. Okay. And I'm going to introduce him in a moment or two so he can introduce his staff that he's working with tonight. The town of Goshen, 3 points I'd like to make about the town. In 2004, we completed a comprehensive plan. Then in 2006 and 2007, we refined that comprehensive plan, zoning map, associated coding, water protocols, and so forth. So from my perspective, that's a fresh document. It's just a few years old, and that's how we want to build the town out. Okay. We have that. Then back in 2006, I asked Phil Cantorino, our Commissioner of Finance, I said, I want us to create a 5-year budget so we can look out 5 years and find out how well we're doing. And when we did, we were very displeased because our government was going to grow and cost people more, and it was going to be difficult to raise the money that we were talking about, but also if we wanted to bring industry or business in, it would be a real negative. So we put together the 5-year plan, and we've been working that plan. And we don't wait till budget time, we just work it all the time. And in 2011, we're going to spend less money than we did in 2010. In 2010, we spent less money than we did in 2009. And had we not lost $1.6 million in mortgage tax, we probably could have been 3 years in a row in the negative tax increases. It just was not possible. But we're making progress. Okay? The third thing that's, and so I think we're poised and ready to, when this economy turns, and by the way, the economy I think is turning around in Goshen. The 3 businesses that I just mentioned, even in 2009 during the recession, it was $11 million of new assessable base. But we're very excited about the third item, and that's Mr. Tetz. Mr. Tetz, the entrepreneur that he is, he purchased some land out along the Echo Lake area. And he wants to build a 1.5 million square foot industrial commercial park. And he's working with R.J. Smith, who's just come in to make that a reality. And so they've been talking to us for a while on this. And for people who don't understand how big 1.5 million square feet is, it's a 35-acre building. And so when this comes to pass, and I'm sure it will come to pass, what we hear tonight from these folks here hopefully will help us work with Gary and the others to fill this building up and that he'll get the level of cooperation that he needs from us. So I'm very pleased that we're ready to go, and this is a good time to begin this process. I'd like to talk a little bit about Phil Dropkin. Phil lives in the town of Goshen, or in the village of Goshen. He is a corporate attorney. I guess that's what you'd call you, corporate attorney.
You can call me what you choose.
You can call it what you could call other things. Okay. He works for Alan Gary in the TV business. But for the town of Goshen, he's been the chairman of our zoning board of appeals. He's been the chairman of the environmental review board. He's been on our board of ethics. He was on the communication tower committee. Okay. He's done a lot of things, and it's interesting. Back when I came to work as a supervisor 6 years ago, I kept seeing his name on a piece of paper, all these titles he had, and my God, he's a one-man show. I think I know this man, but I wasn't quite sure what he looked like. I think he's about 6'5" and 300 pounds. You know, and then I went to meetings and I didn't see him, and well, I guess he's not here. You know, and so anyway, but what it is, then when I did meet him, I said, well, this is not the guy I thought of. You know, but anyway, when I grow up, I want to be just like Phil Dropkin. He is articulate, he's bright, he's energetic, he's well-meaning. He's got all the qualities that a person should have. And so with that, I'd like to turn it over to him, and he can introduce his guests.
No pressure.
And we can go from there. So, Bill, here's the mic, and it's all yours.
Well, when I grow up, I want to be that person that Doug just described. Actually, I do want to thank the town, the village, the trustees, the council members, because what we are attempting to do here with this joint economic development initiative is to begin a process of sustained, thought-out, programmatic effort to retain and to bring jobs into the Goshen area. It is a very competitive environment out there. We all very well know the economic stresses that not only the nation is under, but that the state is under. And simply put, if the jobs don't come here, they'll go elsewhere. And so we need to, I think, take the initiative and try to make Goshen a welcoming place for businesses to bring jobs here, to help out the tax base, to help out our school kids, frankly. So what I did tonight to commence this initiative is to call some people who I have had the good fortune to work with on various projects. All the way on my right is Maureen Hallahan, who is the CEO and president of the Orange County Partnership. Right next to me is almost my namesake, Jonathan Drapkin. I'm Phil Dropkin. Jonathan and I joke that his family worked for mine when we were in Russia. Susan Spear, who is the Hudson Valley representative for U.S. Senator Gillibrand. Arnaldo Severett, who is the district representative for the SBDC. Which stands for
Small Business Development Center.
Small Business. And Susan Jaffe at the end, who is the Hudson Valley Regional Director for the New York State Empire Development Corporation. I have worked with all of you, except this will be my first time working with you, and I'm looking forward to it. So, having said that, Maureen, we'll start with you, and we'll work our way down the line.
Great. Thank you so much, Phil. And thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. I don't think I'm going to use that. Can everybody hear me all right? Sure. I'm sort of loud. So, and I'm going to walk around just a little bit, too, because I have a couple things to share with everybody. I did bring some packets, and help yourself to what I have here. And I have some information to share, and I will not be long. Number one, I work for the Orange County Partnership. We are the Office of Economic Development in Orange County. We were founded 25 years ago. This is our 25th anniversary. And 25 years ago, Lou Heimbeck was our county executive, and he recognized that there was not a concerted effort to market and sell Orange County for its value, for the property that we have, the inventory that we tout, the infrastructure that we enjoy, our roads, our roadways, our quality of life and everything else. So what he wanted to do is he wanted to start one office of economic development that everybody could participate in and we could represent the county. We're not a government office. We're a private not-for-profit. We have a contract with Orange County to provide the service of economic development, and we are largely supported by people like you. Private sector business leaders in Orange County who say, hey, if you bring in a company, I might get some more clients. You're going to flip the lights on, and the utility bills are going to be, sent to my office. The financial institutions might be able to support the efforts of these companies. So that's really what we do. It is not rocket science. It is sales and marketing, and we try to do it well from our office. And it's been a tough economy the last couple of years, especially. But we have managed to attract some great companies, and we're going to tell you about one that we just recently lost, that I believe we could have won if maybe we just made a little bit of a difference in what we do in our municipalities and in our county and in our region. So that's who we are. And what I really want to talk to you about tonight is A, challenges that we face, B, the competitive market that we're in, C, efficiency of our market, or the lack thereof of efficiency, of trying to get projects through the approval process, and incentives, and why we have them. And I'll just educate you a little bit about what they're about and real dollar numbers that you can take a look at, so you don't think we're just giving away the farm with incentives. So I'm going to start with the challenges that we face. I'm not going to tell you anything that you don't know. It's tough to be in New York. It is tough to do business in New York. Our taxes are ridiculously high. We are, in fact, ranked #1 in state and local tax burden in New York State. Our local taxes per capita are the highest in the nation. Our state taxes per capita are the highest in the nation. Our state and local income per capita, we're the highest in the nation. We're like #1, aren't we? We're just the best at all this. Our motor fuel taxes, 3rd highest in the nation. Our average cost of workers' compensation, #1 again. We're per pupil spending. So we should have the smartest kids, right? Per pupil spending in New York State is the highest in the nation. Medicaid spending, we're the highest per capita in the nation. So we rank 49th out of 50 in manufacturing employment growth, and we rank 47th in the nation in financial activities employment growth. We're doing something wrong here. And that goes far beyond this room, but we need to recognize that before we move forward. Competitive markets. We compete with other states that have far less administrative costs because they don't have individual school districts. Other states have lower property taxes, like I just said, lower utility rates, lower Medicaid costs, lower fuel taxes, lower income taxes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Other states in this nation are kicking our butts across the board. And as much as we want to think that we're champions at attracting companies in Orange County, and believe me, I'm the first one to tout when we do attract a new one. I like to make sure that my office is credited and all of our partners are credited, and we can say we did this together. But truthfully, the companies that come here choose to come here because they have to be here. That's it. That's what we're seeing. If they're going to locate in New York, they're either crazy or they absolutely have to be in this part of the country. And thankfully, we have a great market in the metropolitan New York area, so we are still attracting some companies. We have to be as efficient as we possibly can be in order to create and attract companies to New York. We have to be very, very creative. And we also have to be extremely creative in this town. This town has to be very, very creative. And I'm so proud that everybody came here tonight just to listen, to learn, to gain knowledge. Some you'll agree with, some you won't agree with. Hopefully you'll agree with me. But the rest, I'm just kidding. But in terms of efficiency, like I said, the market is highly competitive. If we're talking about land use and the approval process in New York State, in Orange County, or in this town, it is an arduous process. It is near impossible to get through, and we are very poorly ranked. The fact is that we fail miserably, not only in New York and Orange County, but in this town. It's very difficult to get a process, to get a company from the beginning stages through the approval process to a close in a timely enough fashion that they'll stick around to do it. So that is a huge challenge that we face. And you throw in all of our other high costs and all the other challenges that we have, and it becomes near impossible to attract new business and to create new jobs. So I have some visuals for you tonight, just to have a little bit of fun. I want to roll a tape. This is an opportunity that we had right here in your town on Mr. Tess's property. This is the diamond in the rough. Mr. Tess's property is the property that can assist us to create new jobs, to create new ratables, and to create a lot more wealth in your community. And it's in nobody's backyard except the dump is across the street and Mid-Hudson Psych Center is its neighbor. So this is a great corridor that you've obviously identified as a place where business could come. So we have an opportunity to land Macy's in your town. This is what could have been there. Megan, why don't you get up and just sort of walk us through real quick. This is really important.
So, like Maureen said, this is the...
This is Megan Taylor, my Director of Business Attraction and rock star.
This is the Echo Lake site. Sorry for that. As you can see, you're actually traveling along 17N here and where it crosses over 84. Gary has about 200 acres along Echo Lake, and I know John and Art done this by but here down on the bottom, you can see the Mid-Hudson Psych Center, and the Echo Lake property, and specifically Macy's, we were proposing to build a 1.3 million square foot facility. So, like the town supervisor said, it's about 35 acres under one roof. It's a huge, huge facility that would have housed around 1,200 jobs. The site, as you can see, we had this superimposed and we worked with an animation studio to do this. So you could kind of really get a real-life image of what it would look like on that site. You can see there are no residential houses in the area. It would have been a perfect spot for this. I think that's why Gary bought the land. Exactly what it was made for. And it actually would have created a private road that would have been servicing the Mid-Hudson Psych Center as well. So it really would have not only created jobs, but really would have improved what we already have in the town of Goshen. And you can see here, there's aerial shots from above where the building would have landed. And again, residential areas are really nowhere in sight. Again, 1,200 jobs. It would have been $180 million in capital investment into not only the town, but into the county and into our region. And it was a great project. And Maureen's going to talk a little bit more about it.
Thank you, Megan, very much. This is really important for you to know. This site right here is one of only 3 sites in the Hudson Valley that could accommodate 1.3 million square feet under one roof, this site right here. So we have a diamond in our hands here. We have, in this town, this site, you have this site is only one of 5 sites in the Hudson Valley, New Jersey, and Connecticut markets that could hold 1.3 million square feet. And site selectors and commercial brokers know it. They know it exists, they know it's here, and it's on their radar screen. This project was your project to lose at the time that we were seeing it. And the site selector loved the product, they loved your location, they loved your transportation infrastructure, and we scored actually very high in workforce availability. They even really liked Gary Tess. But we were eliminated due to one factor, and the factor was timing. We could not accommodate their time frame. We couldn't get through the approval process fast enough for them to build their building and create the jobs at the time that they needed them. So we were knocked out of the project at an early stage. And I have another example I want to share with you just briefly about another company that actually almost played two towns against each other to see whoever won first. It didn't matter where they landed. That was the town that was going to win the project. But with that timing issue in mind, it is imperative that we have sites that are shovel-ready and pad-ready for projects moving forward. So if we can get this site, online, pad-ready, and ready to rock and roll, anything that we can do as a community, as a county, to make that happen is going to put you in give you a much more competitive edge when the next project comes along. So that's very, very important. There was a project called Medline. This is a pharmaceutical distribution company, 500,000 square feet. They needed to be in this area, in the Hudson Valley. They wanted to be close to 87, 17 corridor, 84 corridor. They distribute pharmaceutical products like IVs and things like that. They had to get in very quickly, so there was an available building on Ballard Road, and they moved in there temporarily while they could do a build-to-suit 500,000 square foot project. They looked at a couple sites in Orange County. Thank God we kept them in Orange County. We had a couple sites that were available. And one of the sites was Mr. Tetz's site out in the town of Wawayanda. It was another one of his gravel, am I saying it right? Is it gravel pit? Is that okay?
Yep.
A gravel pit site. And the good thing about Gary is that after, being the largest aggregate, manufacturer and salesperson in our area, that all his stone and his gravel and everything is on 17 and Drury Lane and all of these projects that he does, when he leaves these sites, they're perfect for development. And I'm going to share with you a couple other sites that he's done throughout the county that has created a lot of rateables. But Medline temporarily moved into the old ShopRite Wakefern facility in Wallkill, went through the approval process in two towns. One town, they just couldn't get it through. And the other town did everything that they should have done. They dotted their I's, crossed their T's, they went through seeker, they did all the things right by the rules, but they did it aggressively, and they solved the problems they needed, and Medline now created 100 jobs in the town of Wawayanda. It's a 500,000 square foot distribution center. I don't remember the exact number of capital investments, but it is a big number. And they are one of the highest taxpayers to Menacing Valley School District. And that's what we're trying to just sort of, create. And I would love it if you could get in your car at some point and drive out there and take a look at it. It is a sexy building, it is on a beautiful development, and it's a great site. Gary?
I have to say one other thing on that project, and I know it's a bad word, but it had a mining permit. I know mining is terrible, but the good part of the mining permit was, as they were going through the process, we mined it and finished it to grade, so when the day they had their building permit, they were putting footings in them. I know mining is bad. Bad is a bad word. And that's what small business, because we consider ourselves small business. No, but it's not funny, because that's what we're considered. We're considered a terrible business. But we're not a terrible business. And it's very, very frustrating to be in these towns and to be approached that way. Because we're a family business that was brought up. We were born and raised right on the farm where we're on right now. And it's very frustrating to go through what we went through in Wallkill and in Wawayanda early on, and could feel the same feeling in Goshen as we got started. It's very discouraging, and that's why people don't move into the area.
I think that's an important point, and I think that when you take a look at the final project too, it really takes the sting out of it. When these sites are cleared and ready to put the pad on the site, the end result, the end product is a beautiful park. And like I said, I encourage you to take a look out there. It's not something that you should be afraid of having in your backyard. It's a beautiful site. And if you zone it appropriately, by the way, that's one thing I want you to know about the Orange County Partnership. We don't come in and ask you to change your zoning. We go by your rules. If you say, this is my growth corridor, this is where we want industry, this is where we accept certain types of business, that's where we ask you, that's where we bring it to you. And we'll come in and we'll meet with your municipal leaders, and we'll make sure that you're aware of what the project is, and so you're not, blindsided by something. But we do ask you, if you zoned it appropriately, if it's ready, if it's a growth corridor that you and the county see as an area for potential growth, then we want you to embrace it. We want to see if we can move it along and get through the approval process in a timely fashion. Let's talk real quickly about being competitive with incentives. Incentives is another reason why, had Macy's come to Goshen and the approval process was set up, they likely would not have stayed either, because the Goshen School District does not embrace 485B, and they do not embrace incentives, IDA incentives, or pilot programs. So I just want to tell you a little bit with this visual what a pilot program looks like, just so you can just kind of wrap your head around it, and then I'm going to bring it to real numbers for the Macy's project. Okay, so the Orange County IDA exists, and they can actually work with your town to offset some of the costs of the tax burdens on the beginning years of a project when companies are investing a tremendous amount of money. So let's just look at this. This is a generic presentation. This is a vacant site. Let's just say it's just a vacant site in the town of Goshen, and this piece of property, because it's vacant, generates $20,000 a year in land taxes. That's what it generates, with nothing on it. Okay, so next slide. Okay, so we attract a company that comes, and they want to create jobs, and they want to come to your town. So the IDA, in order to entice them to come here and not pay full freight on day one, the IDA can, the company purchases the commercial land parcel and constructs the building on it. The Orange County IDA grants the company a 10-year pilot, knowing that there's going to be a lot of jobs created. This is on the improvements only to the land parcel, just the improvements. So the land taxes are paid by the company. The $20,000 does not, you never go backwards. $20,000 is still paid year one, and they're not part of the pilot agreement. So Goshen doesn't lose one dime. They never go backwards. Okay, next slide. So before the IDA pilot agreement, the land yields $20,000 a year in taxes. After the IDA agreement, the land yields $20,000 a year in taxes. The land parcel that generated $20,000 in property taxes before the company comes will still do that in year one. And company ABC can create, let's say, 200 jobs to that site. And they'll still pay property taxes on the improvements to the land in a graduated manner over 10 years. So the next slide. In addition, you get job creation and the trickle-down effect. These people that work there, with 200 jobs, they're going to be eating at Catherine's, they're going to be shopping in your local community, they're going to be pumping gas, and they're going to be spending a lot of money in your community. The job creation has a multiplier that we call, and it's going to still come to Goshen. The next slide. Okay, and all of your special districts will receive their full allotment on the full assessment of the property. So your special districts, your library, and your fire departments and everything else get the full tax assessment, full taxes due on the full assessment of the property. Okay, next slide. All right, so over the course of time, this is year one, the company is built, they got 200 jobs, and they're still going to pay $20,000. Year two, $30,000. This is based on a total assessment of $120,000. Year two, they pay 30, 40, 50, on up until the 11th year when they're paying the full $120,000. And then the next slide is just the same in reverse, that they get 100% tax abatement on the improvement the first year, all the way down to where it goes to 10%. And then the next slide. So company ABC paid a total of $650,000 in taxes during the life of the 10-year pilot. This is $650,000. 200 new jobs are created in the local community. The community benefits directly from the spending power of the company's employees, and the local economy grows and prospers. So if you can understand the pilot, and the last slide is just the same picture. So land taxes are paid over 10 years. You still get the $200,000 to $20,000 times 10 over the 10 years, but you get all the other gains with it. And we also do, sort of a calculation from our office that will show you what that means in terms of dollars and cents just on the multiplier side. So that's just a generic incentive program through the county IDA. So the next thing I wanted to share with you is where you are right now in the town of Goshen in your tax structure. So let's take a look at it takes a second, that's all right. This is all posted online. I just want to let you know, all this information is posted online. If we look at the school district in the town of Goshen and where you compare to Orange County at large, we have this posted online. I want you to take a look at it. It's on our website. So Goshen doesn't look that bad. You're in the top 33%. You have 5,250 residential parcels, and they pay a total of $23.5 million in taxes. So this is your school taxes, and that's 67% of the taxes that are paid by the residents. You have 1,217 commercial parcels of land, and they pay a total taxes of $11.82 million. I'm sorry, $11.82 million, which is 30%. So we have Goshen 67% paid by the residents, 33% paid by the commercial. And what I do have in some of these packets up here is we broke it out just a little bit tighter. What we did for you tonight is a breakdown of literally the village and the town. So we kind of pulled that out because that looks good. That doesn't look bad because there's a lot of other municipalities paying into that number. Town of Walk Hill and Chester and Hamptonburg that pay into that number because they're all part of, or at least a footprint of it goes to the Goshen school taxes. So for example, the village of Goshen is comprised of a total of 1,772 parcels. That's total parcels in Goshen. 288 of those parcels are commercial parcels. They're zoned commercially, and these parcels pay 41% of the village school taxes, and that's $4.2 million. So 16% of the total parcels in the village of Goshen are paying 41% of the village tax bill to the school district. And largely, if you think about that, it's largely from the corporate park, the Westgate and Eastgate. And I can do a breakout on that for you as well to tell you what those buildings, Dana Distributors and the hotel and all those buildings are paying into the village, the school district. The residents of the village of Goshen are paying 59% of the village's portion of the school tax bill. So 84% in the village school tax parcels are residential properties paying only 59%. So we estimate that the corporate park, right there, Westgate and Eastgate, is paying the lion's share for the village. Smart planning. You guys did a great job. You can point to it. 20, 25 years ago, it wasn't even there. And if you didn't let it in, just think of what the difference would be. I have this information in your packet, and it's all online, so I want you to take a look at that when you get a chance. Let's talk about the future real quick. What can we do about the Echo Lake property? That's your diamond here. When Macy's was considering developing their $1.3 million e-commerce center, so we're not talking about those huge trucks out and in every single day. We're talking about people calling online and placing orders. Anything from a lipstick to patio furniture would be sent from that building. Yes, a lot of that stuff would go out in trucks, but they would go through UPS, FedEx, and they would go through certain hubs. This would have changed the face of Stewart Airport. Stewart Airport was negotiating with them on upgrading their UPS and their FedEx services. A lot more jobs than we thought would have come if we landed Macy's. So the fact that the site wasn't further along in the approval process definitely killed the project. But in addition, Macy's was really turned off by the fact that the Goshen School District would not accept a pilot. And if the incentives were not going to be available to them, they would not have come here. So negotiations stopped really before we got started on this site. And this site really was a top contender before that. So we published this little book, and I have them up here. We have them online. I want you to take a look at it. In the book, we made it really simple. It's called How to Increase Tax Ratables. If you do nothing but look at this corporate park right here, all we did was highlight the town of Chester. They have a nice little corporate park with companies that you know, Pep Boys, Amscan, GE, Cirrus, CSI, Iron Mountain, C&S Wholesale, they're all in there. What we did is we did a little down and dirty. At about $1.50 a square foot, we calculated all the square foot of the collective buildings in that park, which is what we can do for Goshen at Westgate and Eastgate. We did that. So at $1.50 a square foot, there's 1.9 million square feet in that park. That one park alone generates almost $2 million a year into the town of Goshen tax base. $2 million, one corporate park. It's something that I think you should think about. I think you should think about that, of course, on the Echo Lake property and any other property that you have in mind that you want to develop. So what we did for the Macy's project, just real quick, we did a little down and dirty ourselves, and we were even cheaper. We did $1.25 a square foot if Macy's had come on the Echo Lake property. If Macy's had come on the Echo Lake property with 1.3 million square foot at $1.25, it would have been $1.6 million a year. But let's give them a pilot. Okay, so let's just say the Echo Lake property pays $50,000 a year now, and I don't know what you pay, Mr. Kavanaugh, but let's just say the blank property is $50,000 right now. And you still get the first year, the $50,000 is what they pay the first year. The second year, the Macy's project would have paid the the town of Goshen $210,000. That's the $50,000 plus the $160,000 for the calculation. What did I say? Yeah, $160,000. Year 3, $370,000 would come to you. Year 4, $530,000. Year 5, $690,000. $850,000. You get the picture. $1 million, $1.170. Year 9, $1.3 million. Year 10, $1.4 million and change. And year 11, $1.6 million plus the $50,000. So $1.650. That's what you get. If you add up those years, 10 years, with the pilot, this community would have gotten $9,350,000 with the pilot. After that, they paid full freight from that point forward. So it's extremely impressive. I can say nothing more but thank you for coming here. I think this is a great start to a wonderful dialogue. I love the Village of Goshen. I spend more time here than I do at home. My office is here. I think you have a tremendous community. But I think if we all collectively work together, we could win some real projects. And I know at the end you want to ask some questions. Is that right? Okay. Thank you very much.
Maureen, thank you. That was a wonderful presentation. I should say that Maureen was also stepping in on behalf of Mike Oates, who was detained in Washington today. So you got double time. We're trying to
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's quite all right. We're trying to limit our time to 15 minutes per speaker. Now, John, I know John can do public speaking when he's sleeping. So, John, the floor is going to be yours. And if you can try to keep it to within the range of 15 minutes, that would be great. But you're on.
Well, that's right. And since Maureen went for about, an hour, then the four of us will average about 15 minutes. But, the truth of the matter is Maureen's presentation is superb in terms of framing the issue of why economic development is important to Orange County. So let me first thank the supervisor and the mayor for inviting us, and for my brother Phil for thinking that I have something to add to this conversation. And for those of you who don't know, Phil and I worked together also building Bethel Woods in my former life when I was the executive director of the Gary Foundation. In that capacity, let me go back and forth between two jobs to explain why Phil thought it would be useful to be here today. I'm currently the CEO and president of Hudson Valley Pattern for Progress, in which we look at issues ranging from improving the quality of life by looking at transportation, by looking at housing, by looking at how to improve the environmental review process, which is a critical adjunct to what Maureen is talking about. How do you make projects go through the process on a more timely basis? But probably why Phil thought I could add something to this discussion is we are also, and especially myself, mad scientists when it comes to the structure of government. And when we see two very good communities, the Village of Goshen and the town of Goshen, and we look at it and we say, are there any opportunities for it to potentially be even stronger by finding ways to work together? Well, that's why Phil asked me to come here. And I think that Phil forgets that in my role in the Gary Foundation, I actually formed a joint economic development corporation in the town and village of Liberty. And my attorney on that project, though he forgot this, was Mr. Dropkin. And the design of the project was done by Mr. Dropkin working with Cornell University. And what happened is the town and the village had joint goals. We had a village that had no more land in which to look at how to create ratables, and a town that did, and a town and a village government that needed to think about how to share infrastructure issues. And there was lots of, well, you're the town and I'm the village and we're not going to get together here. And then when I drove here tonight, I said, well, it's a good thing I was heading for the town, right? Oh, where's your town hall in your village? And you have to remember this commonality here, because one of the interesting things that we did here is we created a community development corporation, and the town and the village both agreed to put in at the time $37,000, and then the Gary Foundation matched it. And so they created an initial budget for the entity, the CDC, of $150,000 for a 3-year period in order to get it off the ground. And I was trying to quickly go back in my head to realize I've been in pattern now for 5 years, and that this is a project we probably did in the middle of when I was at the Gary Foundation. So 8 years ago, we created this project, and I spoke to its executive director yesterday to say, are you still there? He says, believe it or not, the town and the village didn't kill us, and they didn't kill each other. They actually figured out a way to use us in order to help them. Housing projects they have done cooperatively. They have done micro-enterprise programs where, the village has been the beneficiary. But let's face it, town residents, and I want to ask for the show of hands for how many town residents occasionally go into the village. I know that happens. And as a result of that, there's a reason why the town and the village collaboratively, we don't even have to get to merger and dissolution and all the things that make people uncomfortable. There is, as Phil named this, the Joint Economic Development Initiative requires nothing more than people representing both the town and the village to look at a project and the project of economic development collaboratively. They were able to write Main Street grants. They became the grant-writing entity for both the town and the village. By putting their numbers together, they made their application stronger. The list goes on, and then in fact they focused on communities outside of the village but in the town, and were able to provide grants for them and beautification projects, but it became a vehicle on which they could look at economic development, and it's an important model. There aren't many of them out there, but you really do have that potential, and I'm going to suggest at the moment, given the economy, that you also have the need to open your minds to a different approach to how to look at economic development and potentially other issues. I'm from Sullivan County, and I look at, communities like Goshen, like Warwick, and I say to myself, these are, I live near Monticello, and I think you guys are up here and sort of down here, and I think things are really amazing. You've got great main streets, and yet Warwick combined their police departments in 1992. They're still there. They're doing pretty well. And I think you still have 2 separate police departments that cost a lot of money to your taxpayers. And that is part of looking at the issue of how do you make yourselves attractive for economic development by showing that there is a very easy way to go into a community collaboratively and get into areas of comprehensive planning, sewer and water, which I occasionally read about in the newspaper, are issues here in Goshen. I don't want to bring up issues that don't exist here. But you have an opportunity because you really start here. There's some communities that are down here, but people look at Goshen and admire it for its main street, admire it for its community around it, but you have an opportunity to look at it in the way that is being suggested just for discussion purposes, to figure out how to collaborate in a way to make it better and to have it work smoother. And you know, I was thinking about it because some people might say, well, gee, you have the Gary Foundation and Mr. Gary's money to be able to get that off the ground. But you have the Community Foundation of Orange County, which could provide a matching grant if someone was able to structure this the right way. And Phil's pretty clever on how to do that, but you could figure out how to create a entity on your behalf and leave all the other governmental issues aside for now, the structure of the town and the structure of the village, and be able to think about comprehensive planning, comprehensive zoning, infrastructure that is necessary to support the kind of projects that Maureen is talking about, and life will go on, and you will have an opportunity to be much stronger for it. So, mindful of the time, I'll stop there.
Thank you. Lucid and fluid as usual, just like on the basketball court. All right, Susan, it's all yours.
Thank you so much. I'm Susan Spear from U.S. Senator Kirsten Gillibrand's office, and I'm very glad to be here, and I thank Phil for the invitation, and also thank the supervisor and the mayor for hosting us. It's good to be with you tonight. I am really here more to listen than I am to talk, because the Senator is very supportive of your efforts and the cooperation that you're stating here tonight, and she really wants our office to be a resource to you in your efforts. So if there are things that the federal government is doing that are in your way, tell us. We'll try to help you. If there are things that the federal government can do to help you, tell us, and we'll try to make that happen. She really shares your goals here and wants us to be as much of a resource as possible. I did bring some on the table for anyone to take as they're leaving on the way out, and we prepare these books really to explain to you what types of federal programs are available that you can apply for grants specifically for projects like these. And I can tell you from my own experience with the process that cooperation is very high as a selling point in terms of grants that are given by the federal government. They really give a lot of credibility to the request, and the federal government really looks highly when they see groups, municipalities, public-private, coming together in support of a project. So that's a big selling point. In addition, I know that there is an upcoming grant proposal that's coming out in May by the Department of Commerce, and I pulled it out because I thought the title of it was just perfect to what you're trying to accomplish here. It's called the Jobs and Innovation Accelerator Challenge, and they are accepting public-private partnership proposals for federal funding. So that is a really good opportunity, I think, to help you accomplish your goals. The Senator has a number of legislative proposals pending in Congress right now that I think would be real benefits to, again, the goals and the things you're trying to accomplish. They're a series of tax credits for small businesses, tax-free savings for startups, and grants for business incubators. And I would be very interested in hearing from all of you as to the things that you think can be done at the federal level that would enhance what you're trying to accomplish. So with that, I'll stop and I'll listen. And I thank you again for pulling this together. I think it's a great, great start.
Very much appreciative of you being here. Thank you for your comments. And we're going to look forward to more of your comments. MacDonald.
Thank you, Phil, and thanks for the invitation. I'm really honored to be here. I'm going to wear two hats tonight and briefly tell you what the SBA and the SBDC can bring to the table. The SBA originally was founded during the Eisenhower administration as a bank for small businesses. The definition, according to the federal government, of what a small business is all about basically entails, to make it simple, 500 people or less, which is about every business in Orange County, and the Mid-Hudson for that matter. In those days, there was direct lending. At the time, that model evolved, and right now what the SBA basically does is guarantees to established lenders, the loans that they make to their clients. So if you're a small business and you qualify, they have programs like the 504, which basically allows you to purchase a building or build new structure with only 10% of capital down, or programs like the 7A, which allows you to furnish and buy machinery and so forth, which again, they're designed to really give you a shot in the arm with provisos that you have to qualify to meet their requirements. It's not a blanket. They're not blanket programs. With time, they found out that there was an element missing in this equation, and the element was really technical skills, education, know-how. It's not enough to provide funds without the proper intellectual and business tools to put those funds to good use. And that's where the Small Business Development Center Network was born 26 years ago. Today, there's an SBDC within half an hour of every inhabitant in the state of New York. There are 24 centers, and you have the nearest center is right here in Windsor. Make their dreams come true. Our job is to range from just dispensing information, the most basic type of information you can possibly imagine, to somebody who comes in with a dream, to putting together a deal worth $20 million and involving maybe 5 or 6 years of our work. We've done it all. We also get involved with, of course, we're part of the federal government. We get most of our funding from the SBA. So we are one of the players in following through the federal policies. And so right now, for example, we are very much supporting anything that has to do with exports. And I can tell you that, for example, the state infrastructure for SBDC opened an office in Beijing 2 years ago at no cost to the American taxpayer. Don't ask me how we did. And the office stays there and is open for anybody from New York State who wants to export into that market. Why? Because that's one of the initiatives of the federal government. Of course, we do this at no cost. We also provide business research. We have our own research network, and we can bring those capabilities to play. So that's what I do. I also get involved in education, business education, which means that if there is a need to get some group of people and talk about, for example, why shouldn't we consider export as a source of new markets for our businesses? We can come down here, we can get together with a group of people, and we could share what we have learned over the last 15 years of this type of activities with you. We also get involved in advocacy. When I started working with the SBDC over about 10 years ago, somebody told me, if you do your job right, you're going to make some people upset. And that is because, see, even though we get paid by an entity, well, we really work for the clients. We really work for you. So if there's anything that we have to do in order to make sure that you get your fair share and your fair treatment, we will certainly go to bat for you with whoever we have in front. So that's basically. Let me just give you a little bit of my take on what's going on here. I manage 7 counties, and I have the privilege of working within those 7 counties. And I travel a lot. this is not unusual for me to be here at Hickok talking to them. I do this more than I care to do sometimes, but it's part of my job and I love it. And you know what? Municipalities, communities are no different than mass market products when it comes to attracting economic development or attracting suitors. Coca-Cola, Pepsi-Cola, they compete and they try to develop something that in marketing and advertising is very, very important. It's almost crucial, which is your USP, the unique selling proposition. Why is my product better than anybody else's? Why should you buy my product instead of Susan? Hers is pretty good. Better than mine, I'm sure. So imagine, that's a pretty cool concept. Why should I buy my product rather than yours? So imagine somebody trying to looking for a place to settle a business. Imagine that institution knocks on a door and is met with, I don't know, let's think about it, put it in triplicate, etc., etc. Come tomorrow. I'm kind of busy today. Imagine the same person going, or the same institution going elsewhere and kind of getting a professional or a more professional, friendlier approach. Sure, come on in and sit down, want some coffee? Let's talk about your plans. How can we help you? Now, wouldn't that make a difference? So what I'm really trying to say is, in my experience, those communities who want development get development. Development is not magic. You have to work for it. In fact, in this country, you almost have to work for everything. It's a good thing. Nothing is free. If you think that you deserve something free, I think you got a problem. You have to work for it. You have to believe in it. You have to go after it. This has been my experience in the 10 years I've been working in this area, in 7 counties that I have the honor of covering, that those communities who want it do get it. But they have to become business friendly, among other things. And they have to really believe in economic development. And the speakers that preceded me, really, if you think about it, the common message is one: if you work together, you're going to get it. And you're going to make it happen. If you don't, hey, it's been nice knowing you. I'll go work with those who really, really want it, and those who really, really want to work together, because those are the ones that are going to really go ahead. And if it's you, great. And if it's not, you don't know where you're missing. Thank you.
I don't want to, take the pleasure away from Phil.
No, thank you. I concur with your message. If we work for it, we'll get it. And I haven't had the opportunity to work with you before, but I can sense this is the beginning of a beautiful relationship.
Oh boy.
All right. Next speaker is Susan Jaffe, Regional Director of the Hudson Valley Economic Development Corporation. Susan and I have worked on many projects. We've had a lot of fun working on the projects, and we've had a lot of success working on our projects.
Yeah.
So, Susan, it's all yours.
Thanks, Phil. I probably think you guys could hear me without the microphone, right? Yes. Okay, but I'll hang on.
It helps the video.
Say that again?
It helps the video.
Oh, okay. Well, okay then. In that case, it's the microphone. How's that? So I'd like to thank Phil for pulling this event together, and I'd like to thank our supervisor and our mayor and all of the good folks who came out this evening. I'm sitting here with an esteemed panel of folks. What I want to do is tell you a little bit about Empire State Development, who we are, what we do, and how we look forward to working with you. So let me just cover that. Empire State Development is New York State's lead economic development agency. In the Mid-Hudson here, we cover 7 counties. Actually, they're the same counties as MacDonald, same counties as Susan, most of the counties that Jonathan covered. And they are Westchester, Orange, Rockland, Dutchess, Ulster, Putnam, and Sullivan counties. At Empire State Development, our mission is to provide the highest level of assistance and services to businesses in order to encourage economic investment and prosperity in New York State. So at ESD, we're the folks that put together the incentive offers that facilitate business attraction, retention, and expansion here in the Mid-Hudson and throughout the 10 regions throughout the state. Now, just to give you a little sense of what we did last year in the Mid-Hudson region, we administered through our office at least $21 million in grants, and we used, and this is taxpayer dollars, we used these $21 million to leverage over $120 million in private investment throughout the Mid-Hudson. And as a result, we were able to retain 2,971 jobs, and we were also able to facilitate the creation of over 1,400 jobs. We work extremely closely with Maureen and any of the folks who have property in terms of business attraction, et cetera. We're the folks that come in to help close those deals. And we primarily at ESD work with the businesses directly. Even though there are occasions when funding permits and we are able to incentivize municipalities for economic development projects, downtown revitalization, infrastructure projects, and the like. So I want to say we will be working with those companies that are seeking to locate here in Goshen. Okay, in terms of what we offer at ESD, we've got an interesting portfolio. It's pretty extensive. But for the most part, the flavors are tax credits, we do grants, we do low-interest loans, we have interest rate subsidy programs, and we have bonding capacity. So those are the five general flavors, you know, that we have in terms of incentivizing customers that you may bring or you may bring to us. In terms of, let me just back up and say there are a couple of scenarios in terms of businesses that we primarily through, you know, statute or other kinds of guidelines we can't incentivize in general. And they are retail, education, healthcare, and pure real estate development. Pure real estate development. And there are some guidelines as to why we can't incentivize those kinds of initiatives in general. We look at each case on its own merit, and we make some decisions based on that. But basically, for those of you who may not be aware, the thinking is in terms of New York State and taxpayer dollars, we are usually last man at the table. The taxpayer is usually not a major equity stakeholder in a project. We are here to close the gap and facilitate that project location in any of our municipalities, towns, or villages throughout the state. And I'll answer any other questions that you may have regarding that. But that's in general. With respect to the size of projects that we work with out of the Mid-Hudson office, we work with large and small projects, to be quite honest with you. At ESD, we basically, I want to say we subcontract out the services that are available for our mom and pops, our smaller businesses, some of the entities that you would find on Main Street. Why do we do that? We do it because we work closely with chambers and some other community, you know, development financial institutions that have the staff that know what's going on in the trenches and on Main Street and are able to do those business plans, sit down with the folks. You know, I tell Arnaldo, because I'm getting to, you know, his team, they actually are co-located with us. We give them some office space. And we do deals, like he said, large and small, you know. Folks, when that entrepreneur comes through the door, I tell everyone my goal is never to squash a dream. It's to send them to Arnaldo for a reality, for the reality check. I squash no dreams. No, you're not the bad guy. But, you know, I think at the end of the day, it's a process. And for those entrepreneurs who can, you know, sort of stay with the process, develop a business plan, stick to it, get the help, you know, in terms of referrals for financing, et cetera, we talk about projects and we figure out the best strategies, you know, that folks can employ, and then we have good success, I have to say, we do. So we squash no dreams. We let every dream sort of move forward until it gets to a point where it's either coming to fruition or the folks are like, you know, I think I need to maybe backpedal and try something else. So that's for our smaller projects. In terms of incentivizing smaller projects, ESD, throughout the state, we've worked with, like I said, community organizations or other not-for-profits where we provide seed money for what becomes revolving loan funds. So that's how we, you know, sort of get really quickly money out on the street for our mom and pops. With respect to the quote-unquote larger projects, and sometimes, you know, it all depends. So I say if anyone has a project, don't sort of put it in small or large, you know, in either pot, just give us a call and we'll figure it out for you. But for the larger companies, we work with them directly, with Arnaldo, sometimes without, with Maureen and, you know, the economic development team throughout the Mid-Hudson region. And we work really hard to develop an incentive package and structure it such that it meets the needs of that business. We respect our colleagues at the local level. We respect the direction that any community wants to go in. We never come in and sort of try to dictate. We follow your lead. We work closely with Maureen and any members of the team to get through some of the roadblocks and red tape, be it at the federal level, actually just called Susan, or be it at the state level. We tag team with Mycos and some of the other folks who are at the table here. So I wanted to just sort of, you know, talk about that. Now, in terms of, you know, it struck me when Maureen started her presentation, just some of the challenges that our business communities and our municipalities have when it comes to attracting business and keeping businesses in New York State. We have a new governor, as you know, who is very, very, very committed to making New York State open for business and business friendly. He has made it a promise and a priority to streamline processes so that our businesses can fast track projects and get products out to market. And that will entail working with our communities here. We've heard about property tax caps. Not sure how the folks in the room feel about property tax caps, but the majority of the business community are like, woo! They're sort of jumping for joy. In terms of some actual deliverables that recently happened with the enactment of the state budget, there are some enhancements to the Excelsior tax credit program that will be rolled out soon, as well as there's the creation of the Recharge New York program, and that is, you know, sort of energy subsidies for businesses out there. So we're looking at some exciting initiatives. I think the general feeling, if you will, from the business community around the state is one of, it's pretty positive. We're also seeing an uptick in the number of site selectors that are interested in our region. I mean, I think I started seeing an uptick last April, and it has just, it keeps going up. Biotechs are interested in, you know, sort of Rockland and Westchester and Orange County to a certain degree, just based on, you know, what you've got to offer. I find that manufacturers, distribution centers, and other telecommunications, I find they just love Orange County because of its location, proximity to New York, the workforce, the transportation, the highways, 87, the Interstate 87, and the future 86. I mean, folks are pretty excited about that. They're excited about your sites that are ready. And like many of my other colleagues here shared, you know, we've got to work together at the state level, local level, federal level to remove some of the impediments that may be present so that businesses, you know, permitting processes, et cetera, can be fast forwarded. I guess you know, like, thank God I went before 9 o'clock. I think everybody who knows me know that, you know, yes, you can get me out in the evening, but if I have to speak before 9 o'clock, after 9 o'clock, you know, I'm just going to sit there and smile. Now, at 4 o'clock, I'm also awake and alert, but at 9 o'clock, it's my witching hour. So having said that, and knowing, you know, that we want to sort of move forward with questions and answers, I'm going to say thank you again for inviting me, and I look forward to working with you all. I did not bring handouts, but I did bring business cards, because for me that was the most important thing. So I will put them on the table so that you can reach me whenever you need to with any questions at all. So thank you.
Susan, thank you very much. And I will tell you, I am honored that each of you took the time, traveled the distance, prepared for this meeting. One of the secret weapons of this group is that they are an invaluable source for networking. If there is an issue, if there's an entity to get to, if there's a person within the entity to get to, the folks at this table, I have found in my experience, are absolutely invaluable. Who do I need to speak to? How do I get to that person? Okay. What is it? What are their hot points? So I think we're very fortunate to have folks here tonight, and I think that we can open the floor to questions.
Thank you. First, I just want to thank all the presenters tonight. Those were all excellent presentations. My question, it's very specific, but for our community, it's very important. One of the things developers and builders always look for when they look at a potential site is infrastructure. Sewer, water, key things. In the village, we have a sewer plant with excess capacity right now. We have space. We have limited funds to extend the infrastructure outside of the village or even within the village. So a developer that might want to come in, whether in the village or the town, that is excited, likes the area, understands we have the capacity, but in light of all the challenges that Maureen did such a good job of highlighting, what grant money do you know of, and this is open to anyone on the panel, what grant money is there out there for infrastructure improvements for the purpose of economic development? I know grant money is very tight, especially for infrastructure, because everyone wants it. But do you know of any particular projects or resources that, because they encourage economic development, they might be a good fit for us to look into?
I'll take the first swat at that. Two-part answer. The first thing I'm thinking of is, and you probably already know this, the Environmental Facilities Corporation. Sorry about that. You got me trained. The Environmental Facilities Corporation. I had another community that was looking to do a shovel-ready, actually they started along the path of a shovel-ready site, and they needed to extend the sewer lines a little bit outside of their town, and then hook it up and expand it. And what they are in the process of doing is creating a new sewer district. I'm not sure, you know, what your situation will be, but they, in doing so, would be looking to Environmental Facilities Corporation for some additional support. So we can talk some more about that, but that's sort of the first thing that comes to mind as most immediate in terms of assistance for you. And I apologize if you've already started down that path. The second thing, and this is something that is sort of not readily available at this point, but one of the things that ESD may have in the future, sort of exhausted the resources that we have. We had these special funds that allowed for infrastructure development for, small projects such as the one you described, business track, business development, and downtown revitalization. It was, you may have known it as the Blueprint, the Upstate Downstate Blueprint Fund. In the past, we also had the Restore New York funds. Many folks ask, well, do you have those funds? Are they coming back? My answer is no at present, but maybe that's something that, if we sort of get our requests up through our, assembly folks and our state senators, there could be something that's available in the future.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would certainly echo exactly those comments, and I would just add that one of the things that I became concerned about with the EFC, they do a great job, the Environmental Facilities Corporation, they do a great job, and they've provided wonderful opportunities for municipalities all over the state. The way the scoring is done, it doesn't really reward new economic development, and more rewards failing systems. And that's something that is really sort of a hindrance, I think, to new projects, and you may want to talk to your state legislators about that, because other communities that I work with, we're trying to get a revision so it rewards development rather than rewarding failing. So that's one concern, but it is still a wonderful program and definitely worth checking into if you haven't already done that. And I did bring with me guides to federal grants for water and wastewater projects. So I think I emailed you one, but if I did notice this, I did bring copies for anyone else that's interested. I'll put them out as soon as we conclude.
Thank you.
This question is from Maureen, and that's regarding the pilot incentive programs. And you mentioned at Macy's that the school system wasn't willing, or doesn't, today is not in accepting that. What do the majority of school systems do, and how do we convince the school that, for example, in this particular case, there was maybe a major shortfall in this, that might be the thing to proceed on?
Well, we could use all of your support on that. We being the partnership, over the years have actually made presentations to the Goshen School District to try to convince them that this is a plus and not a step backwards. It's only growing and it's only moving forward. But we haven't had a lot of success in that department. I think that's probably one of the goals for tonight, is to try to understand it a little bit better and to try to embrace it and promote it here. Goshen is one of the very few municipalities in Orange County that does not accept the 45B or the pilot programs in this particular municipality.
Well, in our particular community, the school tax is about 70% of the total tax collected, and what I'm thinking out loud to myself as I hear all this, we can work and work and work, but if they don't sign off on something like this, it may not go.
Agreed. Arch, did you want to say something?
Yeah,
completely agreed.
Just to clarify it, the IDA is independent on issuing a pilot agreement as well as the others that they do. The school district has no say or vote in it other than political persuasion. In fact, the Goshen School District is rich with pilot programs that are in place in the town of Wallkill. The Galleria, Restaurant, a new healthcare facility under construction. They all have pilot agreements in the town of Wallkill in the Goshen School District. And they're thriving there. And if you take out that corridor from the town of Wallkill from the Goshen School District and recalculate what your taxes would be in Goshen, you'd be running for the hills. There was a supervisor not too long ago that wanted to annex all the town of Wallkill, Goshen School District, into the Feinberg School District because it was sending like $24,000 per student in taxes for the number of students that reside in that district to the Goshen School District. So it's just that the IDA can and has issued pilot agreements in the Goshen School District. 45B is only two school districts, Goshen and Monroe Woodbury, the only two that refuse to recognize the 45B.
Thanks.
Questions? Don't be bashful. This is your chance.
My name is John Lipinski. I sit on the planning board here in the town of Goshen. I'm also a farmer. I'd like to thank Spear here, who's the senator, all for her work she did when she was a congressperson up in Columbia County. She had a great working relationship with agriculture. And correct me if I'm wrong, but Ms. Callahan had an agricultural background also, worked in the agricultural industry a while back.
I did, yes.
Yes. What I'm getting at is that we really need, increase the tax base, because it's going to be difficult for a lot of us to live here anymore. But, when you do the development, you just don't look at shovel-ready sites, you don't look at the corridor, you look at quality of life issues here, and agriculture, I think, is a big part of that. We keep a large part of the open space in Goshen throughout the Hudson Valley here, whether it's dairy farms, orchards, horse farms, and obviously there's money through Hudson Valley Development Act, or Ag Development Corp. There's Farm Credit, there's Farm Credit Administration, there's Farmers Home. They do things, but more needs to be done. If you're going to keep agriculture viable in this area, and I would impress upon you people not to overlook the importance of agriculture when you're coming up with these recommendations.
Any other questions, comments? Marcy?
I have a question for clarity. I'd like to understand something first. The representatives here, is there a representative here that's going to be able to help me? I've been working on water issues for the village for a long time, and that's very serious issues. I have a question as to what I talk to here, who's representing the state, because I find that part of our major difficulty, whether you're talking about getting shovel-ready or getting approval process done for a new water source that you found the first in 100 years, or any of those things that are going to help on any level that we're all feeling here. Is there any representative here that addresses those issues? I don't think so, and I think that that's a very missing agency. So correct me if I'm wrong. I think state mandates that are coming down to us that we are unfunded and have to deal with here are exceedingly difficult for us to deal with and then address the issues that you are recommending and that I can agree with. But in reality, we're the agencies fighting for the current. Where do we get that helping hand?
Believe it or not, I spoke to the folks from the governor's office. We do not have a regional rep from that office that is hired for Mid-Hudson, but I promise to take notes and send it back. So if you could, take a card or
I shall.
The burden's going to be on you to call me, email me, and then remind me of the conversation, and we'll forward it to the appropriate powers. And for my friend in the back, regarding the agricultural, the shout out to the agricultural community, I have to say I'm with you on that. I own and operate a farm presently in Sullivan County.
Bravo.
We do grass-fed meat and poultry. We sell to New York City markets as well as upstate markets. And I absolutely understand that balance that needs to be accomplished, especially when you're talking about some of my more rural counties like Ulster County, parts of Dutchess County, please, Orange County, the Black Dirt, the farmers, the only farmers, I absolutely agree. So with respect to the question about assistance and help, I know that the dairy farmers, the senator has done a lot with respect to the milk income loss replacement contract, and I know that she continues to work on behalf of our folks. I would say if you have a specific question or a specific recommendation, if you can get it to us, that would be helpful. Presently at ESP, we have the former Commissioner of Ag and Markets, a gentleman by the name of Pat Hooker, who got out and got about, and everybody knows and everybody loves Pat Hooker. And what we're doing at ESP is we're trying to more closely marry incentives and initiatives that may happen in Ag and Markets, USDA, that side of the fence, with the pure ESP economic development side of the fence. So if you have specific questions or suggestions, we'd love to hear it. So to speak for Susan.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. The Senator is now on the Senate Agriculture Committee, as she was in the House, and there will be a we expect there'll be a farm bill this year, so any input you have as to how that can be better for Orange County,
we're all ears.
Are there any specific grants or incentives for not-for-profits that you guys, I mean, I've heard a lot about businesses, small businesses, but are there any incentives for not-for-profit corporations? Are they specific to that?
It depends on what the not-for-profit wants to do. It has to be along the lines of economic development. What was great with respect to Restore and Blueprint and downstate revitalization is that there was some flexibility. It could be applied to not-for-profits, municipalities, etc. Right now, we don't have anything at present in our portfolio, but you need to, just be in touch with us, at least from PSC's perspective. I'm not sure what else may be out there. Jonathan may know of some grants that may be out there, but it must be specific.
It was a global question for
No. So I don't know if I'm putting Jonathan on the spot.
Well, no, it's just when you say for not-for-profits, for what purpose? Is it a not-for-profit that's engaging in economic development?
I'm thinking, well, I have two in particular. One has to do with not-for-profit in Goshen that at one point I was on the board of that deals with mediation, things like that, and the other has to deal with one that wants to run an educational program.
Okay. The short answer to that is the world is not good right now.
Okay.
There are not lots of outstanding federal or state grants. There's not member items that used to keep not-for-profits alive for a while, and that is part of the push to getting lots of not-for-profits, local governments, and other organizations to collaborate, share services, and consolidate, largely because there isn't either the federal, state grant money that once existed. There's relatively less money from the foundation world to support it, and to the degree that there are private citizens that have money that want to, we find right now at the moment that there is less money circulating. There is actually good news that there is more money in the hands of the private sector, but they can't make heads or tails out of the economy itself, and so while they have more money, they're sort of unwilling at the moment to sort of increase contributions. At least that's what I can understand from reading the Chronicle for Philanthropy, which I read weekly, looking for potential hosts.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to get clarification. My name's Pete Smith. I'm one of the village trustees. I just wanted to get clarification to Maureen, what you were talking about with the as regard to Macy's and impediments that were in the thing. What exactly specifically was an impediment, or what things were impediment, and what agencies or identities were responsible for the impediment?
I defer to the specifics to Gary and RJ in terms of the approval process and how quickly they could get through it. They met with Doug and they met with our local group here in the town, and there were just some direct questions that were going to slow up the process. RJ, can you address that?
Typically the process for anything like that is at best 18 months, and we just finished one in one town, 450,000 square feet, which was 3 years. And we lost the prospect to another town, 1470 in Orange County. These companies are making, like Macy's, this was in October, and they wanted to be in the ground in April. So it was impossible. They had to have a site that was completely shovel-ready. Right now in Orange County, there are sites that in aggregate have 2 million square feet of shovel-ready, and some are pad-ready. 2 sites have pad-ready sites. That means all the site work is done. The infrastructure is in, ready for the building for, like Harry said, on where Medline went, waiting for the footings to be dug and poured. Tough to compete with that. If you say, come here, and there's something else right over there. Goshen does not have, and I'm aware of, any shovel-ready site. The closest it has is the Goshen Executive Center, which is 600,000 square feet of mixed office, and that's a tough market to attract. And that has gone through the environmental CEQA process, but still have to go through the complete land use approval process. So when you get a company like Macy's that says they want to be in the ground in 6 months, you can't do it unless you've got a completely shovel-ready site. There was only 2 sites in Orange County that could accommodate it. I think there were the only 2 sites in New York State, and we locked out to a site in West Virginia that, in addition to being shovel-ready, had tons of other lower taxes, lower labor costs, lower insurance costs, lower energy costs, all those things. So,
on a reduced scale from, like, say, something smaller, say, than Macy's, I mean, what do we have to do to get addressed? What do we have, what's
the one advantage to have is position, have the town and the sites within the town positioned so it's shovel-ready, site-ready, so if somebody needs something immediately and you're the only one that can deliver it, you're at the top of the list, all right? You're not going to change dramatically the tax structure except with the incentives. You're not going to change O&R's electric and gas rates dramatically. I mean, these are the things that are out of our control. The insurance rate, we can't sit here tonight and change insurance rates. But by positioning a site, a municipality, and a site, and opening the doors with obvious restrictions, you're not going to, there's certain kinds of uses you're not going to want, but you have sites that are ready, and you're in a position to strike when there's a inquiry and a demand.
Can I ask a question? I'm Ralph Huddleston. I'm the chairman of the planning board here in the town of Goshen. I'm an environmental engineering firm for the last 31 years. And I'd like to commend the SBA. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the SBA. They gave us grants, advice, and helped us get the first state aid minority contract for a technical group. They got us a $10 million oversight job at Hickok and the arsenal. The guys are golden. I mean, they really are worth it. But who pays for these shovel-ready? I mean, I have to tell you, you're talking tens of thousands of dollars just in consultancies with engineering, and who pays that bill?
The developer.
Gary does.
The developer.
To be honest with you, Ralph, that was one of the problems right here in the town of Goshen. We came to the town of Goshen and asked to be able to pay our fees safe, like you do with your subdivision. We were told no. $150 grand up front will get the ball rolling. It's not working in these kind of times. We weren't asking for a break. We don't want to pay it. We said, let us pay it and save it. The answer was no. We walked away.
Okay. And I understand. That's not
That's the frustration that we got.
That's not how we're doing it. But here, I guess my question was, here, if you don't have an applicant, I guess you're the property owner. So you would be the applicant, and you would pay the fees of going through the process of shovel-ready.
Both the project.
We did exactly that in Chester with our Chester gravel bank.
We did it way we are.
While we were mining, we did that in Chester. We did it way we are. We went in, we paid the fees, we got through the process. Matter of fact, that was about the time with coal.
You're right. It does require hundreds of thousands of dollars investment. It's a lot of risk. In the case what Gary's referring to, we asked the town board the $75,000 application fee. On the residential side, you pay so much at application, so much at preliminary approval, and so much at final approval. On the economic development side, it says you pay it all up front. And if the project goes dead, you lose it all. So we said, could we pay $25,000 now, $25,000 on the DEIF, and $25,000 on the FEIF? And the answer was no. So, and then also, obviously we had to set up an escrow account, which we did, and you have to open an escrow account with hundreds, tens of thousands of dollars. In fact, it says, the same, an equal amount, $75,000 for the escrow account. You have to lay all that money out, and then start paying your planner, traffic consultant, engineer, attorneys, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000.
Yeah, so again, those fees, I guess what you're asking us to do is try to change the way we do business, establish relationships with our professionals that say they will pay their fees, not as they go, but they will wait and take them in pay.
No, they'd be paid. In other words, you put $25,000 in the escrow account, that's used up, you put another $25,000 in the escrow account every time the escrow runs dry. And in the application, right now with a residential application, your application fee schedule says you pay in increments. For residential development. In non-residential economic development, it doesn't permit you to do that. You got to pay it all front. If the deal goes dead in 2 months, $75,000 is lost, and this is the application for this. So,
Would be nice to change the way we do business.
Yeah, we have to.
Can I add something to that? Because actually, we're working on this right now in Albany, and there's a number of things we'd like to see changed. We'd like to see the fact that budgets are established by planning boards and town and zoning boards to say, here is the dollar amount that we expect from the developer, and we're going to apportion it over a series of consultants, and that's it. And the developer knows that number up front. It doesn't keep changing during the course of the process. We also ask that if consultant studies have been done in recent time on the same site by a reputable firm, that the board consider accepting that as a fine study and not ask that the study be done over again. There's a number of things that we are absolutely looking to change the process. You're right.
Yeah, you really are asking, you're changing an apple to an orange right now.
But doesn't it make common sense that, like, anything that's common sense, isn't that kind of why we're here? If it makes sense, and it can move you forward to win projects, then I think that this is, not only is the economy right to start looking at things differently, but so is New York State.
Philosophically, some of the stuff you're talking about does make sense, and I think it could probably work. Putting a budget lump sum amount on an application with all the changes, all the modifications, all the adjustments for problems that occur is mythical. I've never seen it. I've been doing it.
It's actually written in the law.
we just did it in Montgomery.
It's written in the law.
Not even change the application. You can't. That isn't written into the law. There's nothing in the process.
If the application changes?
Yeah.
No, that's absolutely true.
But they
That's
always
the
change
scope.
it. They're never in
Well,
your
that's
story.
why we would like to see mandatory scoping done up front.
You don't have a problem here. We scope all phases and go.
I understand that, but what I'm talking about is that the scope is then established at the beginning. Both sides agree to what they are and choose which areas need to be done and which areas do not need to be done based on pre-existing studies. I think we do things over and over again.
I agree there's benefits now.
Okay.
Gary?
As being on the other end of the stick in the town of Walkville, on an asphalt plant, to be 13 years and $2, $3, $4 million later before you get the plant in, that's exactly what we're talking about. Because if the town don't want the project, like happened in Walkville, where it was all welcome with open arms in the beginning, and then politically it got political, and we were stabbed in the back, and the word went down to the planning board to run it out of town, then what happens is every time you get to the point where you think you got all the questions answered, guess what? There's another question. That's exactly what he's talking about right there. And that's why it was 13 years before, and what happens is the towns hope you give up and go away. That's what they hope for. They hope they can spend you to death.
With a
And that's why
predictable review process.
The word we're looking for is certainty, but it shouldn't compromise other needs if done correctly.
But if I could just jump in, I think the conversation that we've been having for the past few minutes all comes down to the seeker process. And the fact that, land use boards in different municipalities have to follow the seeker process that, is governed by the state. So I guess my question to the panel right now is, does seeker reform need to happen in some fashion? I know, Jonathan, your group has spent considerable time on this.
3.5 years.
So I'd be interested, specifically, your ideas for this. So, does seeker reform need to happen? And if so, what shape does that need to take? Because it seems there's a lot of variables from town to town on interpretations of that process.
Look, we're not changing home rule. That, there's certain givens here, and that there's certain things that will not go away. So we're looking to inject a certain amount of certainty into the process that will reduce time and cost without compromising the environment. That's our mantra. We've set 3.5 years. It is, Kyle, it's an element of the process of listening to everything that was said here. There's grant money for infrastructure there's not enough of. That's not a seeker issue per se, unless you start to look at and I wish Goshen would and communities all throughout Hudson Valley would, looking at projects more regionally, so that the investment of infrastructure is done more strategically when there is less dollars available to invest in infrastructure. We do think that Seeker is badly in need of a good looking over at this point in time. The law was created in 1975, has been subject to enormous amounts of judicial interpretation, and we think that it needs to be brought back to its original intent. But we do think, and we have a list of about 9 or 10 proposals that we're working on right now. In our estimation, I'm sure other people, reasonable minds will vary on the project. We'll think otherwise, but we do think that it's a way to speed the process. This is not uncommon, that projects languish for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. And I will say, just so it's clear, there are good developers and there are bad developers. There are reasons why you do want to have safeguards in the process for the protection of your community, especially one as nice as Goshen. That does not mean, though, that there are not enormous numbers of examples where unreasonably projects have been held back from moving forward in a manner, and timelines have not been adhered to. We would like to start to see the fact that if there is a statutory timeline, and if the lead agency is the town or village, or even if it's the DEC, and nobody acts, it's time for a default proposition to be put in there, which says, if you do not act, and you have not said anything about it, you know what? You don't freeze, you go to the next step.
They never hit their time. The DEC. Never. No. And at least in the mining end of it. And I will say, never hit their time.
Let's see you.
Though I appreciate the perspective that you discussed here about Seeker, I think that the real issue here is not, in my opinion at any rate, not looking to start modifying Seeker, but to try to deal with what we have now. Seeker does have time frames built in. Whether they get accommodated correctly or not is another question. And whether it needs some tweaking and reform, I still think the concept is functional. It's not applied to brilliantly at all times. I think that if we're talking down and dirty here, throughout this evening, and I want to be totally constructive in my next comment, throughout this evening we have talked about the benefits to an applicant, which I support, the benefits to the town of Goshen, which I support, the benefits to the village of Goshen, which will provide the sewer, no discussion. So I would like to find and benefit from the experience of any of you working on this level, how we deal with the issue of the fact that we have a costly sewer facility, that we have already committed to providing sewer in some fashion to one project, and are considering different ways of approaching this, since we already have, and don't want to perpetuate any friction that is going to be negative about our future. I'd like the benefit of all your experience. We cannot be the only community in this position. And I feel one of the down and dirty benefits of tonight is that we talk, what did they say, talk, get down to it. And that's really what we're talking about. So can we have some benefit of your experience to give us guidance there about what's worked well for other communities?
Can I ask you to just frame that, because maybe we on the panel are not as familiar as you are with the particular situation in the village of Goshen. So if you wouldn't mind, I'm happy to sit here. Can you elaborate a little bit more on specifically what is the problem? Because you're right, I've worked with municipal governments all throughout.
Here's what I will do. I will say that I served on the planning board and on the village board and was mayor of this village. I'm on the village board again right now. However, I'm not the mayor, and I think, Kyle, I'll be happy to answer, but I don't want to usurp your position. So. You want to answer yourself?
Just given the time, I mean...
Well, I don't want to overstep.
You want to frame our situation to see if they have any general guidance on it?
Yeah. There have to be other communities. We have a new sewer plant. We have a new sewer plant. It costs us a lot of money. Okay.
Well,
We have too much.
I think that our situation is that we need more users.
I know.
And the answer is economic development to bring in those users. So I think they've gone through that. I'm not sure.
Well, then maybe I have a
Be more
different question.
specific.
Maybe my question is different.
Okay.
So can you frame the question?
I'm trying to. I didn't want to step on your name.
So you paid a lot of money for it.
My question is, we have the plan. They do not. The town does not. We're talking about economic development. We are going to be, any applicant is going to be looking for sewer services. Therefore, we're looking for a way for the village and the town to work together on coming up with a way for us to provide sewer services to the town, to the developers, and there must be other communities throughout this economic area where you have one entity that has the infrastructure and has the facilities, and the other where the economic development is occurring and is going to receive the tax benefit while we're providing service. I mean, there has to be a balance. There has to be a way that both entities can be accommodated.
Absolutely.
So that both taxpayer bases can be accommodated. We cannot be the only one in that circumstance, and I'd like the benefit of the experience of somewhere that works.
Okay.
City of Middletown has entered into an agreement with the town of Way Beyond to supply it with a certain gallonage of water and sewer. A water line was run from the city of Middletown out buys the Way Beyond buys water from the city and pays and Medline pays Way Beyond for the water for fire protection.
What is different?
It has to sewer. It has to be cost effective. The subsurface soils are such that it could accommodate its own subsurface plant, system there.
I know, but isn't that why we become so stagnant and confrontational? It's always, we have the plan, I'm trying to get down to what's really going on. We have the plan, you're right, their developers can go, but obviously the developers don't want to, or they would have done it. It's cheaper for them to hook up to our plan.
No problem.
Okay.
They would have run the sewer line from Middletown. In that case, it depends how far away the lines are to the particular project.
Well, RJ, with all respect, my question is, are there any entities where you have one municipality providing the service to another municipality so that both end up?
So Newburgh,
Town of Newburgh, New Windsor, they all work together.
We thought that we would take cash bonds and not take irrevocable letters of credit. What happened is we had a public hearing, all the developers came, they explained what a hardship that would be. We recognized the fact that this might stymie some economic development, so we did not adopt that law, although we were prepared to do it. So I just want to demonstrate that the town of Goshen is commercially friendly. We are looking for economic development. We have done things. I mean, we just did not pass that law because we saw it would stymie a little bit of the economic development. So you have a friendly atmosphere. That's why we're doing this right here. That's why the town embarked on this program. And the second thing I'd like to talk about are the fees that are involved and the payment. And I understand there are two areas here, and I have a financial background, so I look at capitalization and undercapitalization and why businesses fail. 95% fail for poor management or undercapitalization. So what happens is, yes, we ask for all the fees up front. Those fees, it's not a profit center. We pass every fee that we collect on to all the professionals that are looking at the plan, on the people that are processing this application. It's just not a profit center. However, if it breaks down, and I'm telling you, we have a shortage in our escrow accounts, and we have been trying to close the shortage. If it breaks down, the taxpayers have to pay those professionals. Builder leaves and it's happened. I've been on this board a long time in different spurts. are not, and the developer leaves, the taxpayer is stuck with that burden of paying the professionals. So, just to go back a little bit, if you start on a project, capitalization is very, very important. If you don't have enough capitalization to at least set up the escrow account and do the applications, I'm thinking we really have to take a good look at whatever project it is. I'm not talking about yours, any project in the town of Goshen, because we have a fiduciary responsibility to protect the taxpayer. So it's not painting us unfriendly like this Macy's thing. This was, I mean, the way you explained it was a travesty. But I understand you have a job to do. So I just want to make it clear that we are economic friendly and we welcome business. That's the thing to thank you.
Thank you. Tom, did you want to say
what?
Tom, did you want to say
I'm overwhelmed.
Okay.
What I'd like to say as far as head is we're not looking to get ahead on the escrow. We did the same thing in town of Walk Hill with the project we had there, the same thing way beyond it, the same thing in Chester. We put the money in. What we're asking for is to put the money in phases, not to have to put it in all at once and have $150,000 set there for 2 years. The same thing in Chester. We put, or town of Walk Hill, put $10,000 in. When they got down to 2,000, they called again, replenished. We're not looking to get ahead or beat anybody out of any money. We've been here a long time. We want to be here a long time. And to me, the best advantage that all the towns have with TEP is it's a local company. My father started in 1955 after the barn burnt down with one truck. We're here. I said the same thing. Steve Esposito was here where he is now. Said the same thing in Chester. When you have a problem, you can call 692-4486 and you have the owner. You don't have to go to Ireland. And we're not looking to get ahead in.
So, a couple people asked the same question, and that was how can you attract and re-attract more, more businesses to this area? And the answer has not been answered yet, or even asked, is will the town and the village look towards accepting pilot agreements? I mean, that's a major impediment compared to the surrounding municipalities, the surrounding counties, and that's a question that needs really to be, I don't think it needs to be answered tonight, but it needs to be looked into, understood, people need to be educated, and then something needs to be done, some sort of proclamation saying that either they're going to accept them or they're not. Because I think, we do have some great speculative development that has happened despite of that. But if you ask some of those speculative developers who have developed in this area, are they full? No, because they go ahead and ask, a certain price for their building that they built, but then it's, and it's additional $5 for tax, or additional $5, per square foot for this or for that. So I think that's something that we need to look into, and I'm not saying we couldn't have an answer tonight. I'm not going to ask any elected official who will say yes, no, or maybe so, but it's something that I think that this group really should dive into is, are we going to take part in economic development assistance, or are we not?
Well, that's why I asked the question earlier about the school system, and because the fact is you've got fire departments, libraries, schools, village, town, county. There are a lot of people who have to agree to whatever it is that's going on. And if there's one thing I've heard tonight, whether it be the speeding up of the secret process or speeding up of the whole process, incentives, et cetera, I really like the fact that it's on the table tonight. And guess what, I think, Bill, this is probably where we're going to start to work going forward to, because I really do want to see Mr. Betts and his building out there, and I can say, look at that, it's there and it's full of viable business. And that's why we're all here. And so I think just getting the idea of some of the problems on the table, we can go at it, and I think it could be, I'm very optimistic we can get through these things. We have to get through these things if we're going to, there's no reason not to get through these things.
But it's also a small business problem as well. You have some speculative developers that have built some buildings, but they can't fill them because the cost is too great. Right. So it's
It's on all levels. It's not just large, it's not just medium, it's also small, and it's also Main Street.
True.
You know, how many places you see that put up a beautiful building, they got one tenant, because maybe that one tenant could afford $14 per square foot of rent and $5 added on to taxes, but maybe the next tenant can't. And to have those speculative developers, who are most of us homegrown people here, do their next building, they're going to look at the bottom line, and they have to have a lower cost of doing business in order for them to move to the next project that they want to do. And hopefully, you know, this group can get towards that answer eventually.
Well, I'd like to speak to that one as well, because that's what we started 5 years ago with a 5-year budget, to look at what are we going to be charging people. And you can't wait to budget time to start whittling down your costs. And no matter what you've got to build, or what kind of infrastructure you've got, or need, or whatever, you've got to be very, very cautious with what you do, because if you overspend and the money's gone, you got to collect and pay for it. And it's very, I mean, when I worked in private enterprise, doing what we're doing here, going out searching for places for the DuPont Chemical Company, we always looked at what is the cost of doing business there. Now, I can tell you right up front in New York State, I had a plant that I managed over in Poughkeepsie. We left New York State because of workman's compensation. The cost was prohibitive. And that was back in 1992. So, there's a lot of things at every level of the government. It's not just the village, the town, the county, it is the state, et cetera, et cetera. And all those problems have to be come on the table. And I know when I've talked to our legislators in Albany about this, they don't want to talk about it. And yet it's very important. I'm sure that when they went to Martinsburg, West Virginia, Macy's, which is my wife's hometown, by the way, and I've lived there for a while, so I know how cheap it is. I know how cheap it is, and I know how those people are. You come on down, and we'll give you a deal you can't refuse. That's right.
And then you come to New York, and you get fleeced. I mean, it's that simple. So, you see that's a big table there, and we've got to cover around that table with all of us, put the problems on it, and leave with some solutions. It's not enough to bitch about and groan. And so I love this meeting tonight. I really do. I'm really getting into it. And geez, we're at 9 and I'm wide awake. I don't know. and I love this kind of discussion. This is good stuff. Okay. So thank you.
Listen, this was a wonderful discussion. This is a beginning. I want to thank the panelists. I want to thank each of you. This was, I know, very helpful to me. I'm sure it was helpful to many people here. And we will digest what we have. We will get back. We will continue to work, but we need to wrap it up. Our guests need to get home, and so do I.
Good job,
And I don't know exactly what to do.